But how is it that even when the spouses separate, that one spouse might seem to get a ridiculous amount of money, even though they're not together, and it would seem like this is way more.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
It's a good question. So there are not laws on the books that say here's how a divorce for an NBA athlete should happen. Right? When the legislature is passing laws on divorce and family law, they come up with general law for the most of the population. And generally, in most states, it's some version of whatever was earned during the marriage by either side is in the pot, the marital pot, the proverbial marital pot that we divide. And I'm sure we all would agree. Whatever's in the pot should be divided evenly in most cases. You know, if he could work and make a lot of money and she stayed home with the children, well, whatever they have, they should divide. Or she worked really hard because she had a unique skill and he stayed home with the kids. They didn't plan on getting divorced. They were going to live off of what she earned. Now they're getting a divorce, so we should divide it evenly. So the presumption in most states is let's start with a 50-50 presumption. So then you say someone gets married to an NFL athlete who makes, and I've had a jury trial on this issue, made $5 million during the 3-year marriage. Well, they earned $5 million during the marriage. Why don't they split it 50-50? It's different than the average person. The law is there for the average person, but in that case, that person that earned $5 million is not going to earn $5 million in the next 5 years because they broke their leg and they're not able to play again and the NFL moves on. So maybe in that case, they should share a small portion of it. Or maybe you should figure out that $5 million is the same as a normal person in a regular job would earn over 20 years. But they weren't married for 20 years, they were only married for the first few years. So what would a normal person have earned in the first few years? There are a lot of complicated ways to look at it. The hard part is that nobody in the state legislature, the people that make the laws, is going to take the time to say, let's create a special law to decide how do we divide money for NFL athletes, right? So we're stuck with these laws that are general. Same thing with criminal law. You know, why'd that guy go to jail for life when he was just selling marijuana? Well, there are laws that say when you commit your 4th crime that the sentence goes to a certain, you know, it's hard to figure out the right justice for every single situation. So I'm a big fan of laws that give the judges discretion and gives me stuff to argue. Judge, in most cases it should be 50-50. In this case, he doesn't have a backup plan. He doesn't have a plan B. He put all his eggs in the basket of being an athlete, and then he had this horrible injury. He had 14 concussions. He can't play again. He can't get a job right now. The money he made is going to have to last him. She's got a college degree. She can go back to work. Give her a little bit to get her a head start, but don't give her half of what he has because he needs it and she doesn't. I mean, or whatever the argument may be.
Now, in talking about assets and what someone can walk away with, is it seen as maybe scrupulous or kind of not in good faith if you're like, you know what, I'm just going to give $100 million away to my mom and stash it? You know, we hear a lot of those cases where...
Yeah, asset protection you're talking about. People that come in and ask me, how do I shield assets for my spouse? And I say, that's not my area. I don't know that you can even do that legally. That's more estate planning.
Got it.
But the real question comes down to, what were your intentions? And if someone comes in and says, I'm going to get a divorce, I'm going to give this money to my brother, I tell them that's the worst thing they can do. Because, you know, the judge is going to see right through it. The judge is going to make you give half of it to her, and your brother may not give it back to you, right? Right, you think, it's just, but people think like that. On the other hand, you know, if you want to give money to a disabled relative or put money away for your children and lock it away so that their kids and their grandkids, you know, you grew up poor and all of a sudden you hit it big and you make it in the NBA or in the NFL, and you say, I'm going to have this money, I don't need it all. I want to make sure my kids and their kids have a chance at a good education, and that's legitimate, you know, especially if those kids are with your spouse that you're divorcing. Your spouse should say,
right,
thank you very much, I don't need it either. So there are a lot of ways to look at that. But I think giving money to a spouse, or I mean, to a friend or relative, to avoid giving it to your spouse, almost always backfires.
Just a few more questions before we finish. I try not to make, you know, my questions compound.
Ask me whatever you want. I like this.
So, is it hard to manage a personal life and a legal life at the same time?
For me?
Yes.
So it's an interesting question, you know, and I get asked this a lot. I was head of a lot of bar associations, right? The family law sections of the American Bar and a couple others. To me, and maybe I'm unique, maybe I'm a weirdo, my personal life is the law, and that sounds really weird, but I've grown up, I was chair of the family law section of the Georgia Bar and the Atlanta Bar and the American Bar, and I travel, and we're in the International Academy of Family Lawyers. So, and I got married late in life and had a young child late in life who, I had a bit more money than most kids most people that have an infant. I was already 40 years old. So we traveled, and we'd go for bar meetings, and we'd go to bar association meetings. I got back from one last week in Montreal and 2 weeks ago in Albuquerque. So my social life, my private life really is with lawyers, and it's meeting lawyers, and it's speaking on legal topics, or sitting in seminars and learning about legal topics, or going to dinner and lunches and breakfast with legal topics. So maybe I'm not the right person to answer the question, can you have a personal life and a legal life? I've been lucky. I think I'm lucky that I can get to go to fun places like Montreal, to practice my craft, to hone my craft, and to still go out and take a walk and see the historic places. So my social life is my legal life, which is my private life. And for good or bad, I don't have to go to my job and say, okay, that's my job, and now I want to do something way the opposite to go fill my soul and feed my soul and do stuff that's, it's together. And lawyers are generally doing good things. We're working on Habitat for Humanity houses as social work projects at our seminars, or we're doing pro bono work and helping people that can't afford us. So I'm getting to do a lot of stuff that a lot of people can't do in the context of their job. And a lot of people have to work in the office every day in Atlanta, and then if they want a vacation, they want to go to the beach, they have to take time off, and they have to go to the beach and be with their family. We have seminars at the beach. So my vacations are legal seminars. That's when I plan my vacations. I don't do a separate vacation. I almost always plan my vacations around a sports and entertainment seminar that's in Vegas, and I get to be in Vegas and go to some good meals and meet some friends. So that may be a weird answer.
No, it's perfect.
But it's who I am. I just I think it's helped my business. It's helped me become a better lawyer. When I see lawyers in other states telling me war stories of what happened there, it registers. And then I realize I've got the same situation here. I learned my lesson vicariously through a lawyer who complained that they didn't tell their client to show up 30 minutes ahead of time. And their client showed up late to court, and the judge kicked him out of court. And now I remember I always tell my clients to go early, or whatever it is that I might learn by chance.
Is it odd going into a marriage being a divorce lawyer?
So that's interesting. I joke with people that I skipped my first marriage. I just didn't get married until I was 40. But no, I make my own mistakes, and my marriage has its ups and downs. I've got, but I do see cases that make me realize, God, and I thought my wife was really doing something that I didn't like, and I see this person and I say, wow, my wife really is great compared to, all these other people. And I see clients, I see men that say terrible things to their spouses, and sometimes I go home and I say things and I'm like, I sound just like my client. Stop doing that, Randy. Don't, so it helps, but no, it's just, it's a job, and I do my job, and I think my wife learns a lot too, because she's with me at these seminars and she's around lawyers and she learns a lot about what we go through. So the good news is I see how much trouble other people have, and I realize the troubles that I don't have.
Now, do clients or opposing parties ever get mad or maybe want to come after you because they didn't get a favorable judgment and your client did?